world, my name is Keith and you're watching the Nerdy Keith channel, and you're also watching the second episode of What's Veganin. So today we're gonna figure out what's veganin, and today what is veganin is I'm gonna show you all how to make a vegan chickpea curry. Chickpea curry is kind of seen as a staple in vegan cuisine, so I'm going to show you how you can make that yourself very simply with ingredients that you can find pretty much anywhere in any supermarket anytime. So of course, all of the ingredients for today's recipe will be included with the method down below in the description box, but just to round off some of the ingredients you are going to be needing for this recipe, let's start off with what you need for the sauce, which is first of all carrots, approximately 2 to 3 cloves of garlic finely chopped. For the spices, you're going to need 1 tablespoon of curry powder, 1 teaspoon of garam masala, and 1/2 teaspoon of ground chili powder. 1 banana finely sliced. We'll also be needing some soy sauce, 350 milliliters of vegetable stock. This is my own homemade vegetable stock, which is pretty easy to make. You just need a lot of vegetables and you just use the water that's left over. It's pretty easy to make. You can use store-bought vegetable stock, but it tends to contain a lot of oils, and this dish is going to be pretty much oil-free. I'm also going to be using about a tablespoon of tomato puree. For the main vegetables of this dish, I'm going to be using a combination of mushrooms, mixed peppers, green beans. I'm also going to be using sweet potatoes and courgette, that is zucchini for those of you who are American or Canadian. And of course, it wouldn't be much of a chickpea curry without the chickpeas. So this is about a tin's worth of chickpeas just thrown into a bowl. And the very last ingredient we're going to be using today is, of course, rice. You want to make sure that you, of course, wash the rice before you cook it. Okay, firstly, I'm going to start off by making the sauce for this dish, and the first ingredient for the sauce is the carrots. The carrots should be boiled and then allowed to simmer. So as you can see here, the carrots have actually been combined with the sweet potato, and they are ready to be reboiled and then allowed to simmer. The reason why I decided to combine both of these vegetables is because it's always a good idea to parboil the sweet potato, because it is a very starchy and very thick vegetable that can take a little bit of extra time to cook. I will be steaming the rest of the vegetables, so therefore that is why I am parboiling the sweet potatoes first. So we let this all cook, and then once the sweet potato becomes soft, we then set that aside to be ready to be steamed with the rest of the vegetables. So the sweet potato and carrots have now boiled, so it is now time to reduce the heat to about halfway and allow them to simmer until they both become soft. The sweet potatoes are going to become soft first, so you really want to check that with a fork to make sure that you don't overcook them, because if you overcook them, they're going to turn to mush and that's not going to be good. So now that the sweet potatoes have become slightly soft, I've removed them from the saucepan, away from the carrots, and I've set them aside on a plate of their own, ready for steaming with the rest of the vegetables. So it's been about 10 minutes and I have finally gotten the carrots to soften just enough for me to continue with this recipe. So what I've done here is I removed most of the water and I've just left a very small amount of water at the end of the saucepan. So this is to substitute for the oil that I won't be using. So about now is a very good time for us to continue adding more of the ingredients for the sauce. So we're going to continue with garlic. So we're going to get the garlic and we're going to throw that all in there like so. Next up is our tomato puree. We're going to use about a tablespoon. So you just get your tube of tomato puree, squeeze it onto the spoon there. And yeah, I think that's about a tablespoon or so. There you go. Throw it in. So you might want to go ahead and give that a little stir. By the way, we're going to keep this at medium heat for now. So stirring away so all of those flavors absorb right in. So gonna let that sort of absorb all of the flavors before we start adding our spices in. So next up we're gonna add the banana. This is one banana sliced very finely. So throw that in there. Throw that in there, and you want to stir that in too. And the idea is that we need to wait until the banana becomes a little bit soft, a little bit soft before we add those spices in. So we need the flavors absorbed, and we need the banana to become a little bit softer before those spices are added in, which is going to be the main bodies of flavor for our chickpea curry. So now that our banana has now softened significantly enough and the flavors are starting to absorb, we're now going to add in our spices. So away we go, tip it in, throw it all in there. Wonderful. Okay, now let's give that a mix. And oh my god, it is starting to smell like a curry. It's starting to smell like a curry. That's amazing. So for a little bit more flavor, we are now going to add some soy sauce. So we're going to be using approximately 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. So 1 and 2. There we go. 2 tablespoons down the hatch. So give that a stir. So at this point, I think we can increase the heat a little bit to allow all of those flavors absorb even more so. I'm just going to have a whole bouquet of flavors for this amazing curry sauce. By the way, I should mention that this particular recipe is kind of a twist on the katsu curry. The sauce is based on the katsu curry sauce. Actually, it's based on Vegan 100, which was written by Gaz Oakley, so to give credit where credit is due. So this is my sort of take on his recipe. Obviously, I've made quite a lot of changes to his recipe to tweak it to my personal tastes. But anyhow, I'm going to continue stirring here, and as I'm stirring, I'm noticing that the sauce itself is becoming thicker. But not too thick, because we are going to be purifying this later when it cools down just a little bit. But it's really starting to take shape, and we're getting some really good flavors there. So at this point we can then start adding our vegetable stock or broth to the sauce mixture. So we're just going to pour that all in there. So this is going to give us a little bit more volume to our wonderful sauce. So ideally you want to let this simmer for about 10 minutes. But we're going to let it come to the boil first, then we're going to simmer for about 10 minutes. So that it's all cooked through and all of the flavors are fully absorbed in there. So maximum heat, and it's tasting good already. So while our sauce is cooking, I think we can now begin on the rest of the vegetables, and we're going to be steaming these vegetables. So let's start off with, let's see, the big plate. Okay, so the big plate is the combination of the mushrooms, mixed peppers, and green beans. Okay, let's go. So I'm going to put them on the bottom tier. Okay. Okay, so that's the first load of vegetables in there. And let's season them a little bit. So a little bit of ground pepper. Done. A little bit of parsley, ground parsley. Sprinkle that on there. Okay. Looking good. Okay, so let's now go to upper level. Okay, so the upper level, we were a little bit overflowing on the saucepan underneath, so I've obviously taken some of those vegetables, put them on top. But anywho, we're going to take the rest of the vegetables, the courgette, or that is zucchini, For those of you who are American or Canadian, who prefer that term, zucchini and courgette, they both mean the same thing. So, then we're going to do a sweet potato. Even though this is parboiled, it's not fully cooked. You're basically going to half cook it at the start, and this is going to finish everything off. So you want to bring that up to maximum heat, let that come back to the boil. Almost forgot to mention, you can of course get your chickpeas and you can put them on the top section of your steamer. So get your chickpeas and you're gonna throw them on top. Throw them on top too. Okay. So that way at least we'll have some nice hot and flavorsome chickpeas. So the vegetables and the chickpeas that we are steaming have now come to the boil. So I've now reduced that heat down to halfway and I'm now going to allow that to simmer for a few minutes. So at this stage, I think we can start working on the rice. So I'm going to be using a rice pot. My rice has already been washed and it is in water and more or less ready to go in the rice pot, but I'm going to do a few extra things. I didn't list this on the ingredient, but you don't have to do this. This is my thing. You can add a little bit of lime juice to your rice. Lime juice is a really good way of preventing your rice from sticking to each other, or really any citrus fruit in juice form will do. And then I'm just going to season it with a little bit of coriander, like so. Okay, now that you've done that, it is time to turn on the rice. Okay, so the rice is cooking, and I do advise to check on it every once in a while. Some people say you don't really need to do that with rice pots, but personally, in my experience, I find that it does kind of stick together and overcook and tends to stick to the end of the rice pot, which is never good. But so do check on it and give it a little stir every once in a while to make sure that it's that you don't run into any problems. So our sauce mixture has had a chance to cook right through, and I have it all converted into this big large jug here. So the next step is I am going to blend that all up into a nice thick and creamy curry sauce. So I'm using the hand blender today, so we're literally going to get our hand blender and we're going to go right in. Okay, let's do this. So now that that's all blended up, we are now left with a nice, amazing, very, very tasty, a little bit spicy but not too spicy curry sauce. So while we are waiting on the rice to finish cooking, we can now literally take our finished and blended and smooth curry sauce and we can pour it right onto the vegetables, which have now been transferred into one single saucepan. So get the curry sauce and you can just start pouring that on like so. Amazing. All of the flavors, so good. So just give it a good old stir. And this is going to be so tasty when we combine it with rice onto a serving dish. It's going to be amazing. The rice is all cooked and this is our finished product. Doesn't that look so good? So this is the chickpea curry with the rice on the side with the mixed vegetables, and I cannot wait to tuck into this. It is going to be so good. So that is it, everyone, for this episode of What's Veganin'. I do these videos to show you just how easy it is to make plant-based vegan food. It is not that difficult. It doesn't have to be that expensive. You don't have to use as much vegetables as I have done in this recipe. You can definitely strip it back and it'll be just as tasty and just as amazing. But anyway, until next time, everyone, don't forget, nerds rule the world.